Hello, everybody. Welcome to part 3, how Irvine Valley College can assist you in meeting the California Board of Accountancy educational requirements. This is about choosing what courses to take. My disclaimer and copyright notice: the information, opinions in this presentation are those of the author only and not the author's employers or affiliated organizations, including but not limited to Irvine Valley College and the South Orange County Community College District. The presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute any legal or accounting advice whatsoever. This presentation is designed to assist students and CPA candidates with determining their educational requirement in the state of California via the California Board of Accountancy. I will oftentimes refer to certain courses meeting the CPA educational requirements. However, the California Board of Accountancy is the ultimate authority in terms of whether or not a certain course meets their requirements. Okay, so one of the things we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about what courses should I be going through and taking. And the other thing I'm going to also say too is that you want to take your classes. Again, if you already have your bachelor's degree, you're not transferring, you're just taking these classes to become a CPA, take the classes, pass, no pass. Do not stress out about grades. Your family members, the Board of Accountancy will accept the units pass, no pass. The California Board of Accountancy will. If, for example, right, if you're taking 12 units and you're working full time, you've got kids at home, the last thing you should be worried about are grades. And so that's just something that just to kind of keep in the back of your mind. So when I look for this over here in terms of what classes should I be going through and taking. So there's going to be 4 parts of the CPA exam. There's FAR, which is financial accounting and reporting. This is typically the most challenging section. There's reg or regulation, auditing, business environment, and concepts. Okay, so at IVC, right, looking at this over here, we have, the classes that are really going to help you go through and prepare are going to be Accounting 1A, which is financial accounting. That class, a semester class, essentially expands into a year. And at IVC, that becomes a year of intermediate accounting. There is also Accounting 210, but let's kind of go through and take a look at this. And this is just, when do we offer these classes? Well, financial accounting is offered every semester. The first semester of intermediate accounting is typically offered in fall. The other one's offered in spring. Can you take the intermediate accounting classes out of order? And I would say the answer is yes, if your lower division financial accounting class is very, very strong. Now, why do I say to go through and to take these classes? So this is Becker Cpa review. And as you can see, my little FAR medal needs some help. But this is kind of how the CPA exam is laid out for FAR. Now, the reason why they say that this is the toughest is like, oh, auditing has 6 sections. For basically for FAR, there are 10 sections. For reg, there are 8 sections. And then for business, there are 6 sections. So when you see this, this is why, you kind of look at this and say, yeah, FAR is the most challenging. So let's go through and kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive and kind of see what's included over here. So when we look at this first module, standards and conceptual framework, revenue recognition, this is all going to be pretty much be covered. This is really up to M5. This is really the first semester of intermediate accounting. Over here with M6, M7, this is really going to be in the second semester of intermediate accounting, and then adjusting journal entries. That's kind of pervasive throughout. Financial reporting and disclosure. So over here, like when you're looking at subsequent events or the notes to the financial statements or fair value measurements, that's going to be found. That's going to be a little bit like in investments. Segment reporting. Now, when we get over here, segment reporting, that's the second semester of intermediate accounting. When we look over here, ratio analysis comes from a little bit of Accounting 1B. Coming over here to assets related topics, this is pretty much everything here is pretty much in the first semester of intermediate. Now, when we get to over here, which is investments, when you come down over here to basic consolidation concepts, acquisition method, intercompany transactions, consolidated financial statements. This is something you're going to find in an advanced accounting class. We typically at IVC, we have enrollment challenges, meaning that if we don't have 18 students in the class is canceled. So it is what it is, right? It's the framework in which we have to live. But what I have found for most students is that they can study this on their own and they're okay. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to go through and study. If you didn't have a strong foundation in a class, it just means you're going to have to basically make up for that. Over here, liabilities, this is typically going to be going through and being covered in the second semester of intermediate accounting. Leases, second semester of intermediate accounting. Derivatives and hedge accounting, that's a little bit in the first semester. Income taxes, always fun, second semester of intermediate. All this over here is going to be in the second semester of intermediate. Now, these last three parts are governmental accounting, right? I haven't really touched governmental accounting, significantly since 1991 when I took the CPA exam, right? So, but it's on the test. So you just want to basically make sure that these three sections if you haven't had exposure to it, or if you did, but if it wasn't it's the best education, you're going to have to spend the time with it. So when you look at FAR, right, which is by far and away my dad joke for the day, one of the more challenging parts, you just have to be really honest with yourself about, if you didn't have a good background, it's just going to take you longer to go through and to study for. So again, at IVC, the best classes to take to prepare are going to be Accounting 1A, Intermediate Accounting 1 and 2, and then Advanced Accounting. Now, have I met students who have passed FAR without taking intermediate accounting? And that answer is yes. I had a student in my ethics class who actually went to law school and he just learned accounting by studying the review course. So you can do it that way. But when it comes to the CPA exam, that's when you will have to put in the time. I always have this when taking the courses, you'll pay now or later, but you're going to pay. Accounting is a skill. It takes time and practice. And that's what you're going to have to do to be successful. So again, this is what it looks like for FAR. Now, when it comes to regulation, right? Taxation and regulation, what are the best courses to go through and prepare? Now, generally, I recommend at IVC, we have Accounting 206, Accounting 207, and then we also have Management 12A. And let's just take a look at regulation. So when we look at regulation, right over here, we've got, individual taxation part 1, that's really going to be Accounting 206. Individual taxation part 2, that's also going to be our Accounting 206. Property taxation, and not really sure if that's going to be, it might be a little bit in individual. Corporate taxation, that's our Accounting 207. Flow through entity and multiple, that's probably going to be touched on a little bit in Accounting 207. Partnerships, though, work a little bit differently. International tax issues, that may not be touched on in those classes, so it's something you'd have to learn on your own. And then over here, other entity taxation, again, if your course didn't go over it, this is something you can kind of go through and do on your own. Now, business law part 1. And then you also have then business law part 2, which is the final basically section of reg. When I was an undergraduate, I took a business law for accountants class and I got destroyed in that class, which is probably why I went to law school. But in any event, when you go through, this is something that if you've taken a legal environment at business class, this is something you can use that as a basis for this. But I would really say, though, that for these parts, you're going to probably want to go through and study them on your own. I would suggest the best thing to really go through and do is if you look at your, the great thing about Becker, and also Roger has this too, is you get a lecture, and this is going to come right over here. And then this will walk you through each one of these different parts. I can tell you that when I was teaching the second semester of intermediate accounting, In spring, I did not use Wiley. I used Becker to put together my lectures for leases and taxes, and they did a great job. So I'm sure the same holds true for Roger CPA review. But if you kind of look at this over here, they're going to lay out the base, what you need to know for, essentially for, the business law part of reg. Okay. So that kind of gets us over here to, so for regulation, you want to take Accounting 206 and Accounting 207. When are these classes offered at IVC? Typically fall in spring. Now we had Accounting 207. It got canceled in spring of last year, primarily due to COVID, but the enrollments have been up. So just hopefully that keeps on going. But again, we have to have at least 18 students in our sections. And that's why I always thank our students for attending the classes, or else we wouldn't be here without our students. Okay, for auditing, it's pretty simple. At IVC, we have a class, which is Accounting 275B, which is auditing financial statements. We typically only offer this class in spring. So when it comes over here, back over to auditing, and I go over here to the home, right over here is auditing. You basically have like these different sections. I would recommend, I think, and a lot of this is kind of like, using, if you can, while you're taking the auditing class, if you're also studying for that exam at the same time, that might not be a bad thing to do. So again, auditing is pretty much going to be the one class that's going to kind of go through and help you prepare. I would also say, though, that there's kind of an inference that you have a basic knowledge of financial accounting, because when it comes to, say like looking at, I don't know, if you're doing revenue cycle testing, you pretty much need to know, well, how is revenue recognized, right? When do we accrue or recognize expenses? So there's some inherent things in there, but auditing is generally viewed as one of the parts of the CPA exam it's not as bad to study for as the other parts. So this class is in spring only. Now at Saddleback, our sister college, I believe it's offered fall, spring, and summer. So, and again, there's like that. Do they have enough students to stay enrolled in it? Again, it's just that's that type of question. Okay, lastly, we have over here is BEC. Now, one of the things that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video series is that BEC is going to be changing, and it's going to change on December 31st, 2023. So this is a part I would strongly recommend to you that you get out of the way. Now, what are the classes that are going to help me prepare for BEC? Well, if we look over here at business environment concepts, over here you have some things about internal controls, Sarbanes-Oxley, financial risk management, financial management, capital structure, working capital, financial valuation. So this is a lot of like finance type questions. And then over here, when it comes to cost accounting. So what I would say to you is that cost accounting is really going to be covered in Accounting 1B. Sarbanes-Oxley is touched on a little bit in my accounting ethics class, also can be touched on a little bit in auditing, but for this particular part over here, ratio analysis, forecasts and projections, a lot of this is going to be covered. Budgeting, a lot of this is going to be covered in managerial accounting or upper division cost accounting. Over here, market influences on business. That's kind of where the macro microeconomics comes in. Over here, IT and business. These are all different things that you can go through and take and learn on your own. Now, for example, like Cal State Fullerton, which has their own school of accounting, I think that they have accounting information systems, which is more than likely going to be covering all this part over here. But if this is something that you have not taken, again, Becker, Roger, Lime, all these different review courses have different things for you to help you go through and pass the exam. So this is, if you're looking for classes to help you kind of go through and prepare, this is what I would say is managerial accounting. If you've taken cost accounting, that's great. If you have, and it's not the end of the world. Down over here, you've got accounting 112.1, 112.2, and 112.3. Now, this is a class where these are spreadsheets courses. On the CPA exam, you will be able to use their version of Microsoft Excel. Okay, so if I come back over here to financial, and if I come over here to, let's just pull up something random, as it never is going to be fun to do. Let's go over here. Let's go to simulations. So if I look over here, if I take a task-based simulation, I can open up their version of Excel. So this is really why Excel is so important to learn, not only for the CPA exam, but for your employer. And that's why, like, I've had, recruiters tell me endlessly that these are some of the most important classes. The more spreadsheet classes you take, no matter what your major, the better off you're going to be. So again, when you're taking these classes, make sure you take them pass, no pass. Now, the last thing I want to kind of mention is that when you look at some different state requirements, right, is that California, all of these classes, like if you take bookkeeping, payroll accounting, QuickBooks, all of these classes will help you sit basically they'll count towards the units to sit for the CPA exam. However, they are not designed as direct preparation for the CPA exam. So it's not like intermediate accounting or some of the other classes. Rather, they're really kind of designed to help you satisfy the unit requirement. In California, these classes are acceptable, but I'm going to show you something really quickly just to kind of keep in mind. So South Carolina, basically what they do is that they have, in terms of their requirements to sit for the exam, it's a little bit different. When you have accounting semester units, essentially you've got 12 in the lower level maximum, 4 mandatory courses that have to be taken at the upper division level: audit, financial, intermediate accounting, cost accounting, managerial accounting, and a U.S. tax course. And they do not allow skills-based courses like bookkeeping, payroll accounting, QuickBooks, or other software, and then only one business law or legal environment of business course. So you have to be very mindful of, depending on what state you're kind of going through and getting licensed in. Every state has different requirements. Now, the CPA is uniform throughout, right? When you take the CPA exam, it's a uniform CPA exam. So the CPA exam results will be accepted in all 50 states. That is different than the bar exam. When you're becoming an attorney, you have to take the test to become licensed in that particular state. So for California, when you go through and look at the various different, basically the requirements, and if I come over here to the tip sheet, so again, if it has accounting in the title, like, so if you take, accounting applications, QuickBooks, or if you're going through over here and taking, we're a lot more, the Board of Accountancy in California is a lot more flexible, right? So when you look at this is if you're looking at going into another state, and that's why this is really, my presentation is very specific for the California Board of Accountancy, because when you look at these other classes, it's just a different deal. So that pretty much, and then the other parts over here too, if you want to, if you're looking to take accounting ethics, that you can use that, or auditing to satisfy your CPA requirements. Just remember that if you take something up here, it doesn't apply down here. You can have spillover, but you can't take something here and apply it to multiple areas. You have to beat them independently. But right over here, the accounting ethics is a minimum of 3 semester or 4 quarter units in accounting ethics, accountant's professional responsibilities, auditing, or fraud. So, it can be taken at a community college, which is great for my business, or my business of offering educational classes, or my business of being a professor. Okay, so I want to thank you. I apologize for this part being a little bit longer, but I think you can understand the importance of this being a little bit longer, especially from the perspective of, it's watching, going through and seeing what you're going to have to deal with. That really should be dictating the courses you're going to take more so than anything else. That's really what you want to be going through and doing. And from that sense, you want to be kind of be working backwards. But thank you for being here with me today. Please don't forget to like. If you have any feedback, please feel free to send it to 1812cpa@gmail.com. Have a great day.